When it comes to kids and gender and sexuality, who decides? Parents? Teachers? The state? Does anyone have a consistent answer?
The kid.
This is in Florida and other places, school for very young kids, the genderbread man. So this is trying to sow doubt about kids, about their gender identity. It's trying to say that, they could be whatever they want to be. This is inappropriate for kindergartners and first graders and second graders. Parents do not want this going on in their schools.
Genderbread Person version 4.0. A teaching tool for breaking the big concept of gender down into bite-sized, digestible pieces. So, you want to better understand gender, or need help explaining it to someone else. Used by, and contributed to by, countless people around the world and throughout the decades, the Genderbread Person is a wonderful way to start an important conversation. Identity is not equal to expression, is not equal to sex, is not equal to gender, is not equal to sexual orientation.
We require people to be 21 to purchase alcohol beverages and 21 to purchase tobacco products. Why is it so unreasonable to require people to reach a certain level of maturity before making life-altering decisions about their sexuality and identity?
No straight people until age 21. You heard the lady.
Where do non-binary people come from?
Dunno.
It all starts in Mesopotamia.
When was that?
2000 BC.
2000 BC.
This civilization was the earliest records of humanity. There are references to types of people who are neither male or female, and the records describe how God created these people. Next, this was around 400 BC. There are the earliest records of the Hijra people. The Hijra consider themselves to be neither male or female.
As a whole entire civilization?
Yeah, and they still exist, the Hijra people, although oppressed they are. Next, we have 7th century BC. These are my favourites. The Scythians, who were Eurasian nomadic horse riders, who apparently
You're making this up.
who apparently honoured gender non-conforming people as priests and warriors. They apparently also invented the earliest known hormone therapy using licorice root. Pre-colonial Native Americans, let's spin that bloody globe again, shall we? Who historically recognised various kinds of genders that all fall under the umbrella of Two-Spirit, which just encompasses the different kinds of genders that they had in the communities that don't fit in the Western gender binary. Now, the year 100, there are records stating that classical Judaism actually recognised 6 genders. I can't tell you more information about that because I don't know it. Anglo-Saxon, when did they start recognising non-binary people? The roots of you and I. Because in the 11th century, there was a word found called weapon wifestra, which meant woman with a weapon, which also people believed to be woman with a penis, and may have been a word used to describe queer, intersex, non-binary folk back in the 11th century of Britain.
Leah Thomas made history, taking first place in the 500-yard freestyle at the NCAA Women's Swimming Championship, the first out-transgender athlete to earn an NCAA Division I title. But according to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, University of Virginia swimmer and Florida native Emma Weyant was the rightful winner of the event. Weyant, who came in second, finished more than a second behind Thomas in the race. The Republican governor posted a proclamation to Twitter on Tuesday claiming that the NCAA is perpetuating a fraud. He said, "It is my determination that men should not be competing against women such as Emma Weyant, robbing women and girls of achievements, awards, and scholarships."
Michael, do you know what the leading cause of death for pregnant people is?
Pregnant people?
Mm-hmm.
Mothers? Women?
If you'd like to call them mothers, not all of them are mothers, but if you'd like to call them that.
What are they if they're not mothers?
They're pregnant people.
What people other than mothers are pregnant?
It only takes a couple extra syllables to use inclusive language.
To include
and
who?
It seems to include people who don't identify as women but can become pregnant.
So you're telling me that in order to be a moral person, I need to accept the idea that a man can really become a woman. That's a prerequisite of my being a moral person.
I mean, yes.
I would like to identify, I do identify actually, as the correct person on this issue. And I would just ask that you accept and affirm my identity. Do you?
Well, you are not a medical professional, and abortion and pregnancy
No,
is a medical
my identity.
concern. That's not your identity.
That is my identity. I promise you, that's my identity.
I am so sick of seeing the same comment over and over and over and over and over. And every time someone posts it, they think they're being so clever. And the comment that I'm referring to is the classic, I identify as a potato / there's only 2 biological genders. So let me break this down for you. Since apparently you don't know how to use Google, gender identity is an internal sense of one's gender. Biological sex has 5 different components to identify. Those 5 components are chromosomes, external genitalia, internal genitalia, hormones, and expression of hormones. That's how we define biological sex, and obviously when you have that many variables, they're not always going to line up. Gender identity and biological sex don't always have to line up. Trans people are a natural part of human diversity. So the next time you want to throw some transphobic comments my way, at least make sure they're accurate.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
The GOP just openly called for a genocide to be carried out against the trans community.
Transgenderism doesn't make any sense. Transgender isn't an ism, it's an adjective, not an ideology. Saying that you're against transgenderism is like saying you're against brown hairism. It's stupid. But transphobes will say it anyway, because when they put ism at the end of the word, they can pretend like they're against an ideology and not a type of person. Anybody who says the word transgenderism has an agenda, and they are using that word to mask their bigotry. So if you are not a transphobe, don't say transgenderism. Don't let them normalize that way of talking about us.
This comment exemplifies one of the primary misunderstandings people have about trans kids and gender affirmation. No kid under the age of 15 is getting gender affirming surgery. So this whole concept of, oh, we don't want kids to have irreversible surgeries before they can make these decisions. They're not. The politicians are just lying to you and using propaganda and fear-mongering to make you think that they are. Why? To turn us against trans people. But the reality is that gender affirmation for a kid that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old is a new name, maybe new pronouns, maybe some new clothing, maybe a haircut. These kids mostly are not getting any irreversible changes. And if you want to look at the research, the extremely small percentage of kids that do detransition do so because of A, external factors, and B, they do so before age 12, which means before they've accessed any gender affirming healthcare. Trans kids deserve gender affirmation just like all kids do.
My kid was going to school with a girl who was a they-them. She decided she was a they-them. And she demanded that they talk in they-them way. Like, you had to use, when you were referring to her as a plural. This girl wore makeup, dressed like a girl, just decided that she was a they-them, and would get angry if you misgendered her.
And
by not calling her a plural.
Yeah. And what does that mean? So we have enough of a problem getting someone who identifies as a woman to tell us what a woman is, but
right. What's a they?
Yeah. What do you like? Describe to me the feelings of being a they. Describe. Can you describe that? What is that experience like? And anytime you ask someone to do that, it immediately descends into incoherence. And also, by the way, the actual gender neutral pronoun for an individual is it. It's not they. So it's interesting that. Well, nobody wants to be an it because it's dehumanizing.
Offensive.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to be a they.
On Biden and Harris's watch, this woke self-loathing has swept our country. It's in the classroom, the boardroom, and the back rooms of government. We're told our country is flawed, rotten, and full of hate. Joe and Kamala even say that America's racist. Wokeness is a virus more dangerous than any pandemic, hands down.
COVID has killed over 1 million Americans. But pronouns.
Ladies or low testosterone male pink tool set, 6-piece. $10.
Happy Women's Day to all the girlies and low testosterone males.
Keep your tools clean. Rev up your grooming routine with performance grooming tools from Manscaped.
Manscaped be like, shave your balls in front of your car's engine to feel like a man.
Hurry to everymanjack.com to get yours while supplies last.
The lengths we have to go to get straight men to clean themselves.
Brad Pitt unveils his genderless skincare line, Le Domaine, to British Vogue.
Genderless? Skincare?
During a conversation I let it slip that I've tried Botox a few times. They're acting like I just came out as gender fluid. I'm still very much a he-man. I think Harry Styles would benefit from 3 years in the Marine Corps. Lil Nas has a big problem, and so does America. Knock yourself out, Nas. You're a little fool with zero talent.
Damn, Greg, all I did was wear a crop top this time.
Mark Bryan, influencer known for his love of wearing skirts and heels, blames the LGBTQIA+ community for the public perceiving him as gay. I've tried to separate myself from the LGB community. They've made it worse for me, being straight, because now I'm assumed to be gay.
The only reason you're able to dress the way you do and be celebrated for it is because of the progress made by the LGBTQ+ community. You want to separate yourself from the LGB community while enjoying the fruits of their labor. Wild.
I just pissed off a lot of men. Let's talk about it. I did a video about perfume, and it seemed to reach the most mustiest of men. While we're here, we're also gonna put on another dress as a man. They really don't like it when I do this. I just exist on the internet and on some pretty clothes, and it makes y'all mad. But what I've learned is that nothing y'all say matters. Y'all will comment something like, he's a man, why is he wearing girls' clothes? But the second half of you say I'm a woman now. Newsflash, I'm a man. But your smelly group is proving our point that nothing defines a woman besides a woman. What you can't seem to comprehend is that your idea of masculinity is not secure. You know how many sexy men commented on my page saying, I'm a man, I love what you do, and they just go on about their day? You don't need to look at other men to figure out what masculinity is. Because masculinity, just like your idea of womanhood, is subjective. And your world is breaking down because you don't know what I am. You didn't grow up around this, and that part's not your fault. Your ignorance is your fault. If you're a confident person or you're comfortable in your masculinity, you have no reason to comment zesty, gay. And as I put on this lip gloss, which by the way men invented makeup, I suggest you look at yourself and ask, what defines a man? Made for men. Made for men. Made for men and made for men. What is it then? Let me help you out there. It's you. So go ahead, show me what you got, and keep commenting, because I'll just keep buying dresses.
Not the toxic masculinity Pinterest board decor.
This is right here. This is the boy section?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Is this the boy section too?
Yes.
You gotta be kidding me. Wow. This is the boy section. Oh, hey, we got a boy shirt. Hold on. This is the boy section. We're in the boy section. Ma'am, is this? You gotta be kidding me. Is this the boy section too?
That is for boys.
Now, if this ain't pushing the agenda, I don't know what is. This is sick. Target, do better. Yes, we're at Target. Look at this. So you can look like your sister. Isn't that something?
First time I brought them to Disney, I thought they were going to go for, you know, the big superheroes. They were looking at princesses. And they all wanted to be, you know, Minnie Mouse. And then I said, but what about Mickey? And then I'm saying to myself, you know what? It's okay. You know why it's okay? Because they're talking, they're finding themselves. You don't know what they're going to become later. And you don't want for them to have psychologiquement a problem of growth and say, I'm supposed to be like that, I'm supposed to say that, I'm supposed to dress like this because I'm a guy, I'm a boy, I'm supposed to do. No, no, you don't know. Let people be who they are as quick and as soon as possible.
It's a part of God's holistic plan for who we are, and I can look at my body and see I'm a female.
This is the thing, lady. To say that everybody who dresses in drag hates the body they're born in, doesn't want to be that, like, that's all so wild. And it's also interesting, I always bring it back to this, but it's funny that, like, when it's Tyler Perry doing Medea, or like, you know, Dana Carvey doing Church Lady, anything like that, it's not drag and it's fine. But when it's like in a queer space, like there's a DJ involved in a disco ball and it's gay people watching, suddenly it's like trauma. We must all be traumatized. We're just doing drag. It's just dressing up. It's not, when you think about it, it's not even that interesting. I mean, it's a costume. It's a costume. When you dress as a pirate for Halloween, does it mean that, is it because you hate yourself and you want to be a pirate? Like, no. It's just dressing up.
Alpha males eat wings and drink beer at Hooters with the boys. Beta males nibble on tapas at Spanish vegan cafes with their wives.
As a former Hooters girl, I can assure you only betas who like to think they were alpha males ate there. And we all left when you left.
Let's take you, for example, and me, and we both pull up and we go to your girl. Odds are I'm gonna take that bitch. If you compared me to you, you're not gonna win that battle. So the next time you think that your girl's on lock, I got the keys to the castle, motherfucker.
You are hearing that the root cause of massacres across this country, like no other industrialized country suffers, is evil. It's mental illness. We need more paddles and prayers. There's too many single moms raising children. Really? Early on in this testimony, you heard from the ranking member, his focus, his worry is that we are trying to emasculate the Second Amendment. My, oh my, to deprive a man of his male role or identity. May not anyone's masculinity be connected to slaughter of children in our country.
There's a reason the vast majority of these shooters are male. There is no talking about gun violence without talking about patriarchy.
No idea if he did roids or not, but Jackman is kind of a perfect case study of what's happened to male beauty standards over the last 20 years.
How superhero figures are marketed. Versus what the actors actually look like.
It gets worse, and I hope you fucking hurt. Now what's the word, Captain? I think I caught you lacking. They are not me obsessed with you. Yes.
One of those areas is the area of transgenderism. The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific.
To opine on this, this only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do we even give a shit? what someone identifies with? So we live in a free country, and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are. There's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way. Okay? This is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country.
Look, it started with a speaker at a conservative conference calling for the eradication of transgender people, language that not a single national Republican leader has condemned. In Iowa and Tennessee, Republicans are now calling for legislation to attack gay marriage and protections for same-sex couples. In Florida, just Florida alone, Republicans introduced 20 bills on a single day to roll back the rights of LGBTQ community. One of those bills would give the state the right to remove kids from their parents just because that kid is transgender. And just think about that. Just think about a kid who's sitting at home in this community, who's listening and hearing elected officials talking about how they want to take away their rights, or how they want to even threaten their parents with felony charges for seeking health care for their children. These kids are sitting at home having to listen to people who are supposed to protect them and their freedom saying these horrific, ugly, despicable things. So far this year, we have seen more than 450 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced at the state level. You've heard me say that before, amounting to a record number of anti-LGBTQ bills in our country's history. Guys, today is day 70. It is day 70 of 2023. The same leaders that tout freedom apparently don't extend their love for freedom if they disagree with who you are, who you love, or how you parent. It's government overreach at its worst, taking away rights from the vulnerable, all to distract from a deeply unpopular agenda that caters to the ultra-rich.
Wisconsin school district bans pride flags and pronouns.
How do you ban pronouns?
Thank God pregnant 12-year-olds will no longer have to see a rainbow in their classrooms while they're getting shot at.
Republicans think a 10-year-old girl is old enough to be a mom, but too young to learn some people have two moms.
I'm just going to read you the language in your bill. No classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties relating to sexual orientation or gender identity shall occur. Lady, you mentioned George Washington. Who is Martha Washington?
His wife.
Under your bill, how could you mention that in a classroom?
So to me, that's not sexual orientation.
Really? So it's only really certain sexual orientations that you want prohibited from introduction in the
Do you
classroom.
have language to make that better, to make it where you're not talking?
Lady, I didn't introduce your bill.
Okay.
And I didn't write it. You wrote it, and so I'm asking what it means. Which sexual orientations do you believe should be prohibited from Missouri classrooms?
We all have a moral compass. And my moral compass is compared with the Bible.
Lady, I believe during your testimony, you said that you didn't want teachers' personal beliefs entering the classroom, but it seemed a lot like your personal belief you would like to enter all Missouri classrooms.
Reminder that this is what we are facing. She introduced this bill and doesn't even know the definition of sexual orientation. A lot of these people could have benefited from, I don't know, learning this in school.
I heard someone say,
oh, but what about straight pride?
Well, here are 9 reasons why we don't actually need one. Straight people aren't being murdered for being straight. Straight people can travel without fear of being straight. Straight people have always been legally able to marry. Straight people have never been jailed for being straight. Straight people don't face heterophobia in the workplace. Straight people aren't called sinners for being straight. Straight people see representation across all pop culture. Straight people don't have to face the fear of being rejected by their friends or family for coming out. And finally, straight people don't have suicidal thoughts for being straight.
There is no such thing as an LGBT child. Stop sexualizing kids.
Do these people think that you wake up on the morning of your 18th birthday with a letter under your door informing you that you're LGBT?
Recipe for baby. 1 cup mommy 3 pumps daddy mix with love bake until July.
Straight people do stuff like this and no one says a word about making their sexuality other people's business. Must just be a homophobia thing.
Second grade, my teacher got married and had a mock wedding for her students. From that day forward, I always knew I wanted to do the same thing. We walked in with the same song that I walked down the aisle to, and the reactions from my kids seeing me in my wedding dress is something I'll never forget.
I'm happy for her, but if a gay teacher did this, they would get fired and Libsov TikTok would post their address.
I don't hate straight people or anything. I just wish there were laws against doing this type of thing where it's possible for children to see.
The reason straight men get so uncomfortable around queer men is because they fear that we will do the same things to them as they do to women.
Serious question about these types of videos. What do you think it's communicating to the other little girls when their dad reacts like this?
M&M's have just released feminist M&M's. Yes, you heard me right. Feminist M&M's. Egregious sexism of the worst and most conceivable kind. Any male that buys a packet of M&M's from today forward must hand in their man card because they are a soft, woke, beta male feminist who has serious problems.
Dude, chill. They've been making M&Ms with nuts forever.
We hear so much about groups of people being erased and their achievements. That's only actually happening to one group, and that is white men. Okay? The only group of people that in this country that are being erased in any kind of meaningful way, historically, are white men. And then people that are being erased in another sense, women by the trans activists.
Are there a more fragile group of people on the planet than white conservative men?
So all this, hate and rhetoric and laws being passed, I know that it has impacted performers like yourself.
There are people filled with a lot of hate who have been conditioned by people like the conservative right who prey upon this hatred and this fear and use it to manipulate our minds. This is not new to us. I feel like we're at this point in history, okay, where we're just asking for fair and equal treatment, like many people in our country have asked for before. And this isn't a question of conservative versus liberal views. It's just a question between right and wrong. We're human beings. We're citizens of this country. We deserve to be treated with the same respect, dignity, and liberty as every other citizen of our wonderful country.
Hi, welcome to Earth. What's your gender? Female. Great. Here is your appearance. Cool. And here are your insecurities. Wait, what am I going to do with these? Oh, well, it's 2022, so you do actually have some options. You could obs, vintage, hate yourself forever. Or now you can embrace and love yourself for them because you are Bruno Mars. #perfect, just the way you are. Oh, sweet. Thanks. Okay. Hi, welcome to Earth. What's your gender? Male. Great. Here is your appearance and here are your insecurities. Wait, what am I going to do with those? I don't know. Grow a beard?
How do men get through stuff without crying?
Bottle everything up until we died of stress-induced heart failure in our 40s like real men.
Dating opportunities for heterosexual men are diminishing as healthy relationship standards increase. Men need to address skills deficits to meet healthier relationship expectations. Women prefer men who are emotionally available, good communicators, and share similar values.
Men, don't be emotionally attached to your children. A teacher doesn't attach to his students. A leader doesn't attach to his followers. A man who is emotionally attached to his children will be manipulated by his wife. #Masculinity Saturday.
Pause. Am I failing?
Dads don't struggle with those thoughts.
What if I lost this job?
Dads don't have a lot of pressure. Parenting isn't hard for dads.
Wish I was home more. They're growing so quick. I'm so stressed. I never dealt with anxiety before. I just want to give them the life they deserve.
Why would a dad need a break?
I just need to man up. To all the tired dads out there, don't stay silent. You aren't alone. I see you. I hope this helps you. Keep showing up.
So you're with Moms for Liberty. So you're telling me there's a new threat besides gender ideology, besides critical race theory. What's this third one?
So social emotional learning is basically the Trojan horse that allows critical race theory, that allows the critical queer theory, teaching our kids how to feel, teaching them about their feeling. Rather than parents paying for a therapist for their children, they let the teachers do it at school.
They talk about their feelings?
They talk about their feelings all the time, or they'll say, it's called formative conversations, and they'll say, so how can we show empathy? Let's say that we have...
So empathy?
Okay, so if the word, let's say they have a word of the week, and the word of the week at my child's school was empathy. And the teacher started talking, how can we show empathy? And then she says, if you have a friend that has two moms, how can you have empathy? Well, my child comes home and says, Mom, there can be two moms, and then it's these conversations leading.
They're indoctrinating our kids with empathy.
Would you let your kid dress up as a character of a different gender for World Book Day? Let's put it another way. Would you let your daughter dress up as Peter Rabbit, Willy Wonka, Max from Where the Wild Things Are? What about your son? And he go as Alice in Wonderland, Matilda? What about Peppa Pig? She is his favourite. If you said yes to the first three but no to the last three, do you know why? Were you worried about teasing? Did it feel wrong to you? When we say that our sons can't be a female character, What is it that we're telling them? That female characters aren't aspirational? That a female character isn't good enough for a boy? Fine for a girl, obviously, but not for a boy. If we want our sons to see women as equals, affirming their choices around simple things, like wanting to be a female character for World Book Day, actually can have a huge impact. Our society, absolutely everywhere, tells us that boys should not look up to women. The messages are subtle, and not so subtle, that basically boys are better than girls. And so yeah, I get it. We want to protect our kids. We don't want them to be teased. But if we shut it down, they take on that societal belief. And let's be clear, that societal belief is misogyny. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think?
Listen up, current and future dads. My father was an excellent parent to me, and I want to share some of the outstanding parenting choices he made. My dad was an unapologetic feminist and ally to the LGBTQIA community. He modeled inclusion and respect for me, and it made me realize I would be accepted and cherished by him no matter my gender or orientation. My father did not buy into toxic masculinity. He was willing to wear bright colors. He loved cats. He did not drink at all ever. Again, he watched the shows I watched, which were things like Buffy, Veronica Mars, and the OC. He loved sports and was a professional soccer player. My father cried in front of me. He was not ashamed to emote around me, and he showed me many emotions and modeled appropriate ways of conveying anger.
Andrew Tate is just empowering boys to be proud of their masculinity. Yes, some things he says are extreme, but it's just satire. Take a joke, LOL. I guess his fans are just very into satire. I am glad that Andrew Tate has been banned from Instagram. It was the right thing to do. But let's be clear, Andrew Tate is a symptom, not a cause of the bigger issue, which is that young boys are not being taught to process their emotions in a healthy way. There is a self-esteem and mental health crisis among young men, and it's being created by the same unhealthy masculinity that fueled Andrew Tate's fame. Until we're ready to take that crisis seriously, people like Andrew Tate will keep popping up and exploiting young men in their most vulnerable moments.
Season 5 of Drag Race, my father came in and untucked on a video.
Hey, Alyssa, this is Dad.
Oh my gosh, that's my dad. It was the very first time I ever saw him cry. And he said the message was, "You'll always be Daddy's little girl." And so when they read the message, I was like, well, that's definitely not for me, shit. You know? And it was for me. It was my father. And I remember like having a very emotional moment that was shared on television, but it obviously went longer because I didn't have enough time to share it. And my father said to me, "I think God gave me a son like you to change me because I didn't want you for a son. That was not what I ever imagined for my son to be." My dad rode a Harley Davidson. He was a man's man. He said, and I missed out on a lot of years, Justin, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to repair that. So my hope for you is that you be the man that I was not able to be. And that was so impactful because I wear a dress and I'm more of a man than you probably will ever be.
Talk about the different kinds of drag and your reaction to those who say it's all inappropriate for kids and families.
But there are places where we can embrace them and we can give visibility that these kids might need. I mean, there's a sense and rhetoric that this is somehow harmful to children. I would argue that seeing drag queens, seeing queer people, people from other walks of life is essential to children, is essential to children who may see themselves in this. As a young person, I wish I'd seen more queer representation. It is a hard thing to grow up queer. And like it or not, your kids may need to see people like this out there. It may save their life. It may actually let them know that there is a future for them. It's a dark thing sometimes to be a queer kid. And I know I made it out just by the skin of my teeth.
Tucker is promoting his new documentary called The End of Men. He says, one of the biggest stories of our lifetimes is the total collapse of testosterone levels in American men. This may be more autobiographical.
One of the biggest stories of our lifetimes is the total collapse in testosterone levels in American men. Those levels are declining by roughly 10% per decade, completely changing the way people are at the most fundamental level. NIH does not seem interested in this at all. It's not a big deal. We think it is a huge deal, so we want to know what's causing it and what you can do about it. That's the topic of our upcoming documentary called The End of Men. Here's a look at the trailer.
once a society collapses, then you're in hard times. Well, hard iron sharpens iron, as they say, and those hard times inevitably produce men who are tough, men who are resourceful, men who are strong enough to survive. And then they go on to re-establish order, and so the cycle begins again.
This is so gay. Crazy how I was constantly bombarded with heterosexual propaganda since birth, and somehow didn't turn out straight.
Has forced gay thoughts into the minds of young men for decades.
I'm sorry, but no one is forcing you to have gay thoughts. I see women sexualized constantly. It's unavoidable. I can't escape it. You know how many straight thoughts I have? None. Approximately 0. None straight thoughts. People are like, oh, everybody has gay thoughts now and again. No, I don't. You know who has gay thoughts? People who are a little bit gay. And that's okay.
I've obtained leaked video from Disney's upcoming show Baymax, which promotes the transgender flag and the idea that men can have periods to children as young as 2 years old. It's all part of Disney's plan to re-engineer the discourse around kids and sexuality.
Saying that periods are about sexuality is what sexualizes children. It's a bodily function, and we should talk about it more and be embarrassed by it less.
Excuse me, which of these products would you recommend?
Oh, well, these are the tampons I usually use.
Thank you.
I prefer pads. They're more comfortable for me.
Thank you.
I always get the ones with wings.
Thank you.
Get them scented and bleach-free if you can.
Thank you.
Yo, my daughter loves these.
Thank you.
These might be easier if it's her first period.
Thank
these
you.
are really environmentally friendly.
When did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals?
That is the latest GOP talking point. Republicans are now claiming that education, or even just conversations around gender identity and sexual orientation in schools or television programming, is a form of grooming children to become LGBTQ+.
There's never a time when a teacher needs to sit down with kids and tell them that, hey, you know, you're a boy, but you might actually be a girl.
This argument has surfaced in discussions of a recently passed Florida bill that, in part, prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels or in a specified manner. Critics are calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. Proponents are calling it the Anti-Grooming bill.
If you really want to talk to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old about their sexuality and gender, that's on you. You're a pervert. You're a weirdo. I don't give a damn if you're a teacher.
Like maybe teach the kids to read before you tell them to go trans. You shouldn't be talking to kindergartners about gender identity, especially if you're not their parents. That's creepy. You should be arrested for that.
Look, there's a reason why the Democrats are treating this bill like it's the apocalypse. All we're telling them is you can't groom young children, and to them it's Armageddon, and that's because they know they have to indoctrinate the kids into this madness very, very young.
The supposed indoctrination of the nation's children isn't just in schools, according to conservatives. It's also in media.
Now it's all about pushing a sexual agenda on little children across their entertainment platforms.
You don't have to be afraid to, like, let's have these two characters kiss, let's in the background this, like, I was just wherever I could just basically adding queerness.
They've been really open to exploring queer stories.
Disney wants to completely take your children and they want to indoctrinate them into sexual immoral filth.
The fact that we are trying to accelerate our kids in this direction is incredibly concerning for me as a parent.
The fact that they want to sexualize our children and our children's childhoods for their own political agenda is incredibly disturbing. Instead of making films that kids want to watch, they're actually making films that will indoctrinate them.
Their main, quote, goal as a company is now to teach kindergartens in Florida that they can, in fact, change their gender just by wishing it so. It makes you wonder if kids in Florida can consent to chemical castration with no parental involvement.
This isn't programming, this is propaganda for grooming.
According to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, or RAINN, grooming is defined as manipulative behaviors that the abuser uses to gain access to a potential victim, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. So, not what Republicans are talking about. I spoke to Sarah Kate Ellis, president and CEO of GLAAD, to understand a bit more about Republicans' misuse of the word grooming.
What are conservatives really saying here?
To put this in context, politicians
who are anti-LGBTQ have been using this false narrative and stereotype for decades now. LGBTQ people have been falsely accused of crimes and have not been hired as teachers.
Well, it sounds like the behavior of a sex offender. I mean, normal people don't sexualize underage children, period.
We are letting them control the narrative here because these bills actually aren't even about that. These bills are about censorship. Mommy, Mama, and Me, which was one of my kids' favorite books, is not allowed in that classroom anymore. So my kids can read about a mom and a dad and a child, but not two moms and a child. And therefore, the message that they are being sent is that they don't matter, that their family is less than. And that is the danger in all of this. Because if we look at what's going on with our LGBTQ families and our LGBTQ youth, they are under siege right now. In 2021, 1 out of every 4 LGBTQ teen attempted suicide. Sit with that for a minute. What I'd love to see these politicians do is lift these kids up, is to help these kids and these families instead of pushing them down.
After calling LGBTQ people groomers for the past 2 years, 28 Republicans just voted no on a bill that would protect victims of child sex abuse.
Conservatives are claiming that they want to ban drag shows because they want to protect children. But we don't have data supporting the idea that children are being harmed by drag shows. But you know what we are very aware of now? The amount of children being harmed within church. Children are being taken to a location, generally weekly, sometimes daily if they go to daycare or school there, and told that they should have an errant trust for the people there because they're their spiritual leaders. And then we're shocked when they come out with stories of abuse. But conservatives want you to think that they are concerned for children, and that's why they're banning drag shows. They're not actually concerned for the children. They're concerned about losing control over the children.
In the past week, there have been 17 arrests or convictions of adults accused of having sex with children. Of those 17, 14 were pastors or youth pastors at Christian churches. One was the husband of a youth pastor. One, a police officer. None were drag queens. I don't know how many weeks I can keep it up for, but here is this week's count of adults in the United States arrested or sentenced for sex crimes involving children. 1 Christian pastor, 3 youth pastors, 1 rabbi, 1 small-town mayor, 1 Mormon bishop, and 1 retiree. Once again, not a single drag queen, and not a single person who's transgender. Time now for week 3 in our series, Who's Making News in the United States for Sex Crimes Involving Children? This week, 9 pastors or youth pastors, 1 Catholic Church official, 1 school librarian, and 1 Idaho state rep who raped a girl and is being sued by her, along with another state rep who helped out her. Atop that, Tennessee's lieutenant governor caught tweeting to a 20-year-old gay man. Oh, no drag queens, no transgender people, yet again. You want the totals? Here they are. So far, 30 religious figures, 1 school official, and 3 politicians. Nobody trans, no drag queens. That's 3 weeks. Footnotes, we're not leaving anybody out. This is just the people who made the news. Not all cases do.
Taking kids to Hooters is not considered grooming. There's not even much outrage about it being a kid-appropriate place. But y'all want to convince me y'all care about child appropriateness and respectability politics when it comes to drag queens reading stories to kids in libraries. But when kids go to an NBA basketball game or a college basketball game and they see something like this during halftime, nobody's questioning the appropriateness of grooming, huh? Taking kids to a library to see drag queens, oh, that's too far. But taking kids to a bar where the emphasis is Hooters on women, that's not too far.
Dressed up like women, now preying on these young children.
Okay, no she didn't. She just said preying on these young children. You guys, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something very fundamental. Nobody who does drag thinks about kids. We don't get in drag thinking, I hope the kids in the audience like it. I hope the kids really turn up for me today. I hope the kids brought their tipping money. The whole thing of gay people and children and like the grooming, like wanting to children is like crazy. I think we all know where men put on dresses and kids. Okay, it's not a drag show. I never was at a drag show till I was 18. Do you think that going to a drag show makes you do drag?
Even taking young boys and dressing them up like over-sexualized women.
That is not over-sexualization. These are like the people that like, when somebody has like a kid, and it's like a little boy and their baby, like, ooh, that's his girlfriend. That's his girlfriend. He's a heartbreaker. I'm like, you're disgusting.
Daughter's beautiful. How old is she? 5 years old? You're 5, McKenna Hensley? Oh my goodness. She gonna be a looker too when she gets old. I tell you what, you got any boyfriends? No? Well, she gonna be beating boys off with a stick. I'll tell you what. Is that a drag queen?
I heard an independent fundamental Baptist preacher. He's like, it's not right for me to just tell my wife when we're gonna have kids. I need to ask her permission or ask when it's okay to start having kids. And I'm like thinking, like, are you a man? And you're gonna ask your wife if it's okay to have children? I'm like, what planet am I living on? How effeminate is that to let your wife tell you when she's gonna have kids or not? I mean, that's feminism. You know which buttons I ask my wife it's okay to press? None. Because she doesn't tell me what to do.
We live in Texas, where Governor Abbott issued a directive to investigate parents like my husband Adam and I for child abuse because we provide Max with the gender-affirming care he needs. We invited Attorney General Ken Paxton and his wife Angela to our home for dinner a couple years back, just so that they could meet a transgender child and see how much we love our kids. Here's actually a picture of them sitting at my dining room table. But a few weeks ago, they sent Child Protective Services to our home to sit at that same table and question us. I was sure they were going to take my kids away, and I've never been more terrified. I want parents everywhere to know that my child is no different than any other. I am offended when people say that trans people are somehow a threat, because the threat is towards trans people, not the other way around. I have never shed a tear because my child is trans. Never. But I am angry every single day because of the way the world treats my son. Y'all have so much power to make a better world for all LGBTQ young people. You can change the narrative with just one tweet. So when you're making TV shows and movies and writing stories on the news, I am begging you, humanize and normalize families with trans kids and trans people of every age and background.
Not this, but that. Here's a gender inclusive tip. Instead of staying silent when your friends, coworkers, family members say something transphobic, don't ignore it. You're thinking, well, that's hard. I don't always know what to say. Well, to have a few go-to scripts in your hip pocket toolkit. I'm really surprised to hear you say something like that. I like this one because it's a great way to let the other person know you're not co-signing the hateful thing. What do you mean when you say, fill in the blank? This one's good when you have rapport with a person or when you want to directly call someone out and get them to explain their thinking. I'm not sure what's led for you feeling comfortable saying things like that about people to me, but that's not okay. It's probably the most confrontational and direct, but you're being very clear. I'll just be clear and say it. These tips also work for racist comments, xenophobic comments, fatphobic comments.
Hey, look over there. A classic distraction technique. Distracting us away from the real issues that they were voted into office to focus on. Jobs, healthcare, keeping our children safe from harm at their own school. But we know that bullies are incompetent at solving real issues. They look for easy targets so they can give the impression of being effective. They think our love, our light, our laughter, and our joy are signs of weakness. But they're wrong, because that is our strength. Drag queens are the Marines of the queer movement. Don't get it twisted and don't be distracted. Register to vote so we can get these stunt queens out of office and put some smart people with real solutions into government. And by the way, a social media post has never been as powerful as a registered vote.
You want to ban drag show readings to children?
To minors, yes.
Why?
Why?
What are you protecting?
Why can we prohibit children from voting, those under 18 from voting?
Why are you
but
banning?
Also that.
Is that free speech? Are you infringing on that performer's free speech?
They can continue to exercise their free speech, just not in front of a child.
Why?
Because the government does have a responsibility to protect.
I'm sorry?
The government does have a responsibility in certain instances to
What's
protect
the
children.
leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is. It's firearms. More than cancer, more than car accidents. And what you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of. But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying fuck to stop that because that shall not be infringed. That is hypocrisy at its highest order.
Hello. Welcome. I'm Laura. I use the she, her pronouns. Come on in. Feel free to walk around. You can shop any section you want, okay?
So in all the paperwork that was given to me, it said your name is Jane Smith. Is that what you want me to call you?
All right, so I think we should invite Linda and Cheryl, our neighbors, over for the barbecue. Is there anyone you want to invite? So Jane let me know that she wanted a really short haircut. So I just was hoping we could discuss that at our next team meeting. You know, I've never fostered a transgender child before. I would love some feedback on this situation.
Because I want to leave the earth in a better place than I found it. And I want to continue on people like Tammy Faye, and I want to continue on making kids feel that they're not wrong. Even with lawmakers and sort of what some of the community is facing right now. I'm just like, do we have to make a law? Like, really? Do we have to spend money to tell people they're wrong? Or that they're ugly or sinners, or they're going to hurt children? It's actually fascinating to me and also very harmful to society. So as long as I'm here, I will do that. And I get asked a lot of time, why does it matter so much to you? You're not gay, you're not trans, you're not. I'm like, it matters because I'm human. I'm a human. And it should matter to you because you're a human too, sir.
I want to share something with you that's kind of private to my family, but actually kind of not. Let me preface this by saying that I am not an expert. I am just a parent of a trans kid. My 17-year-old son, Nate, came out about 2 years ago and was living as non-binary. Recently, she has shared with us that she wants to present as fully female before she takes the plunge, so to speak. What was really hard for me was changing the name from Nate to Ivy on my phone. I cried. But then when she asked me to show her how to use makeup, there was this like kind of giddy excitement that was going on. Look, I was never the mom that brings the cupcakes to the birthday at school. There was always some sort of catastrophe. I always forgot the fork or the napkins. I wasn't good at it. But my kids could always come to us with anything sex, drugs, and rock and roll related. They felt comfortable talking to us about stuff. I don't know. As a parent, your emotions go back and forth. You know that saying? A mom is only as happy as her most unhappy child? And I'm not saying that Ivy is unhappy. I see that she has less anxiety since she's decided to explore this part of herself. It's just that I know that life is hard. And as a parent, you kind of want to make life easier for your kid. But that's not really possible, is it? But I'll tell you what I do know. I know that life isn't black and white. And I know that gender is a grayscale. And if you aren't comfortable as either male or female, why do you need to be labeled as such? At the end of the day, Ivy's going to have to do the heavy lifting. I can't do it for her, but I will be right behind her, supporting her. I will be a pillar for her to lean on when she needs it. If I could help any other parent making the transition of their kid transitioning a little easier, or not even easier, but just you're not alone, then this is a good thing that we are going through together. So thank you for listening.
You've heard me say I'm the mom of a trans kid, a trans daughter, and I do not understand why my Republican colleagues are so fixated on a group of children who are trying to live their lives. I really don't understand it. I thought you guys were the party of freedom. What kind of freedom is this? You want to actually put kids in danger. You are making laws here, or trying to make laws, without even understanding, or maybe you do, that would be worse, the impact of your words and your amendments and your legislation that hurts children across this country. You know, when my daughter came out to me, I embraced her. And unfortunately, not every child gets that acceptance from their families when they choose to come out. In part because we have these polarizing, divisive conversations where instead of offering assistance and support and all kinds of welcoming support from parents, we have legislators who want to make trans kids a problem in this country. They are not a problem. My daughter is not a problem.
Can you respond to Governor Ron DeSantis in Iowa today, who said Florida is where woke goes to die?
So here's what I have to say. When Republicans, extreme Republicans, these MAGA Republicans, don't agree with an issue or with policy, they don't bring forth something that's going to either have a good faith conversation. They go to this conversation of woke. But that is not actually policy. What that turns into is hate. What it turns into is despicable policy. And it's just not the way we're going to move forward. This is not protecting freedoms. This is not having a good faith conversation on how we can move the country forward. This is about attacking, we're talking about attacking young kids and their parents because of how they view themselves, because of how they see themselves, because of how they want to live. Kids and their parents. What does that have to do with anything about being woke? That is just hate, and it is shameful. It is shameful, and we're going to call it out. And like I said, the president is going to continue to say we have the back of that community, or any vulnerable community.
Do you have any response to him saying?
This drag show causes me to close my business, and I lose all the money I put into it, but I save one kid who didn't kill himself. I don't care.
My dad defending drag and trans people on national news is so crazy. I'm so lucky to have such supportive, open-minded parents.
We the people are in control. Our elected officials work for us, not the other way around. I'm calling on each and every one of you to join me in holding our communities, our local representatives, and our nation's leaders accountable during this very critical inflection point in American history. President Biden, you say trans youth are brave and claim to have their backs, yet your administration has not done enough to sufficiently protect them. Talk is cheap. We need you to act. Case in point, the LGBTQ Equality Act, which would establish federal non-discrimination protections for all LGBTQ Americans. Adult lawmakers are leveraging the power bestowed on them by American voters to target children. Children. Let that sink in. If you're not appalled, you're not paying attention. I'd like to take a moment to speak directly to trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming siblings, particularly the young people out there. I see you. I understand the very unique pain of watching your basic freedoms become pawns in our nation's fractured political system. If it all feels overwhelming at times, you're right, it is. But listen up, my dears, because this is important. You are remarkable. You are powerful. You are unstoppable. No amount of hateful rhetoric will ever change that. Remember, there is a rich history of trans and gender non-conforming people who came before you did. There's a powerful collective surrounding you. Each of us must lift up the banner of liberation together so that the generations that come after us will be even freer. We have always existed, and we will always persevere.